And I love that Langston is this hopelessly romantic, fun, immature, snarky big brother who happens to be gay, and he's unapologetic about it, and it's never questioned by him, it's never questioned by his family or friends, and I think that's a really important message of hope to depict.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Pop Culture Planet. I'm your host, Kristen Maldonado, and today we are talking with Troy Iwata, who stars in Netflix's new holiday show, Dash and Lily. He was also a cast member in the Broadway show Be More Chill, and we talk about acting, representation, and more. Enjoy our conversation. First of all, loved Dash and Lily. It was so much fun. And I mean, I think the first thing that I really loved about it was just that we're like seeing this Japanese American like woman leading a holiday rom-com and her family. What was that like being a part of a project like that? I feel like we don't see that very often. This is the first time I've seen that, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So what was that like for you?
For me personally, it was a kind of a dream come true, because being a mixed race person and also being like an ethnically ambiguous person, I think this is actually the first time that I've actually played a half Japanese person. I've played every other or just like or like we don't know, and that's okay, and sometimes, and usually that's fine, but to be able to actually play a character and be able to embrace my own culture and show a family that looks like my family was something that was really special. There's one episode where we're having like a family Christmas party, and there's a montage and we're all wearing the same pajamas, and then at the very end there's just like a family photo, and Lily's actually supposed to be really sad, so she's like really unhappy in the middle, but everyone else, other than that, it's just like a great family photo. It was a really special scene to me because it was just like ended with this beautiful family portrait of a mixture of Japanese and white people, and then me and Midori in the middle who look like both of them, and it was just sort of like Netflix, our show, saying like, this is a family, and it's just as valid as every other family, and I thought that that was really special.
For you, what is your relationship like with your half Japanese heritage, and were you able to kind of bring that experience into this project?
It was interesting because, like, I think being mixed race, everyone's journey with that is completely different. I grew up mostly in the household of my white mom, so I didn't really have a strong connection with my Japanese heritage, and also I'm like fourth generation, and so like my dad, who is Japanese, he's just a dude from LA, so there were certain details in the show where both Midori and I and other Japanese actors there would be like, well, obviously we would take off our shoes like when we enter the house. That was something that I grew up doing. But it was also, doing the show was a great opportunity. I learned a little bit about certain holiday traditions that I didn't grow up doing. So it was cool to see those and know that, that's where I come from. And but yeah, yeah, being biracial is a weird and fun experience, and like depicting it on TV is wonderful. It was interesting because like sometimes they would turn to me and be like, "Is this something that your family does?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know. I didn't do it."
That's so interesting. Yeah, I guess everybody has their own experiences. I'm Hispanic, but from New York, and I'm mostly American. Grew up in a very white area, so
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that I also am just like, I don't know. Like, do people
Yeah,
do this? And then it kind of makes you feel like, am I, enough of this background?
exactly. And I think one thing that I really loved, especially about our show, was that we didn't force this narrative that if you are, you know, half Japanese or Japanese in any way, and you don't know these traditions or you don't know certain things, that doesn't take away your heritage. It doesn't mean that you are less Japanese than someone else. And I think that that's something that I really loved about our show, was that here we have this like mixed race family that brings in elements from every culture, and that's great. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no too much or not enough. It's so I think that they did a really great job of depicting that.
And now you and Midori had such great chemistry as brother and sister. I feel like you were kind of the mentor, pushing her to like really go outside her box throughout the show. What was that like working together?
On camera, that was the relationship. Off camera, complete opposite. Because Midori is a pro, and she's definitely been in this business longer than I have. That's not a comment to her age. She's been working much longer than I have. She was an absolute delight, as they say. She's so professional yet so fun, and she's very meticulous in her process, but like an absolute ball to work with. She has a really infectious laugh, and she's kind of, she's snarky and chill, and she's every positive adjective that I can think of. I loved working with her, and I hope to work with her again. I was also really excited to work with her because I just saw her movie Bad Boys or Good Boys.
Yes,
Whatever
yes.
Boys. I can never remember if it's Bad Boys or Good Boys, but you know what movie I'm talking about.
Yes.
I think also when we're talking about like YA TV shows, a lot of them depict, that age group 16 through 19 as way more mature than a lot of us are. And I think Midori is like, she's playing like she's 16, 17, but she loves books and she loves Christmas and she skips down the street. And there are 17-year-olds like that, and I think that they're not depicted enough. We see things like Euphoria and all this stuff where they're like, I am like, I'm gritty and like I'm gonna experiment with drugs and sex, and it's like, sure, this is a time to do that, but you don't have to. You can also make your own Christmas sweaters and bake cookies if you want to. That's perfectly fine.
Yes, preach. We need different representation for different types of people, and then
Yeah.
people like Lily, we need people like Langston that are just having fun on Christmas.
Yeah.
Your character also is, an openly gay man who's, just like living his life, helping out his sister. Do you feel like that's maybe a character that we haven't always seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they exist. I won't claim that Langston is the only character like that exists, but I do think that it's rare, and I think that one of the things that I really gravitated towards Langston for was he was such a refreshing queer character because he was so much more than his struggle of being, queer. I think that a lot of times, especially with younger queer characters, creators feel the need to show them struggling with their identity, struggling with acceptance of them from themselves or from family and friends. And I think that those stories are valid and do need to be told, but members of the queer community are so much more than that. And I love that Langston is this hopelessly romantic, fun, immature, snarky big brother who happens to be gay, and he's unapologetic about it, and it's never questioned by him, it's never questioned by his family or friends, and I think that's a really important message of hope to depict.
Do you think that there are things that can be done to have better representation in general in Hollywood when it comes to telling these types of stories?
We need to acknowledge the fact that there is literally every kind of individual in existence out there. And so this narrative of like archetypes or different types of people, or sort of like stock characters, if you will, we need to get rid of that. And I'm not saying that our show is the perfect example of representation, but I am really proud of our show because I think that it is moving forward when it comes to representation, because I don't think it's possible to represent every kind of individual that exists. But we should keep trying to just, show different kinds of people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different identities, and different personality traits.
I know I feel like I'd be remiss not to bring this up, but Joe Trace, you worked with him on, Lightning Thief, Be More Chill, and now this project. Tell me about you guys' like relationship and your working friendship, and what that's been like, working on all these projects. I mean, like I said, we're both from New York, and
yeah.
I did see Be More Chill. You were amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It's like, I'm like a little theater nerd.
Oh, thanks. Dash and Lily has been the most I've worked alongside Joe. And so I did meet him once when I did Lightning Thief, because it was like a children's tour back then. And so I didn't actually meet him until he just came and saw one of the shows. And I was like, he was like, I'm Joe Trace. And I was like, oh, you wrote the show. Oh, nice to meet you. And then it wasn't until like 2 or 3 years later when Be More Chill went off Broadway and I auditioned for that. And that's when I started getting to know Joe on a more personal level. And then when Be More Chill was on Broadway, in the middle of that process, he came up to me and said that he was writing a new Netflix show and that there was a part that he thought I should come in and audition for, and that was Langston. And yeah, so the filming process for Dash and Lily, I actually got to see and hang out with Joe every day, and that's the most I've ever actually worked with him. Because in Be More Chill too, I was an understudy, so it was my job to just sort of watch, memorize everything, and then just like save the day when I needed to.
Well, that's amazing then that he's still kind of been like this drumbeat in your career.
Yeah. I'm very thankful for Joe.
Speaking of Be More Chill, what is that like understudying 3 different parts? I feel like that's a lot, I'm sure, to try to memorize and be prepared to just like go on and do one of the roles.
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming. I think you have to just kind of look at it as like, this is fun. And like, if I mess up, how fun is that? How hilarious is that? Because it's just kind of like you have to, yeah, I understudied 3 roles, and I actually for Broadway, I started going on before we even opened in previews, and it was very I every time I went on, I personally I felt I never seemed to get enough like time. I always felt like I would show up to work like la la la, and they'd be like, Troy, you're on, and I'm like, crap, and then so that happened so many times that eventually I was like, you know what? Who cares? I know enough. I know enough of it. It's gonna be fine. The rest of the cast is amazing. We're helping each other on stage all the time, and whatever I drop, they'll pick up. And it was a super fun experience. I actually really enjoyed being an understudy. I thought that was really fun.
Going back a little bit, where did your love of entertainment come from? Did you always know you wanted to sing and act?
Not as a career. I definitely grew up with musical theater in my house. I remember like my mom had like a Vita blasting in the minivan when I was like 4.
Yes.
Like I don't in like second grade, I was like singing like, so what happens now? And like my teacher's like, what the hell's wrong with this kid? And so I always grew up with like those soundtracks. My dad would always take us to shows and everything like that. My brother started doing like drama in middle school. I was always very shy. And then my junior year of high school, our high school was doing The Wizard of Oz, and my brother told me that I had to audition. Because he decided not to audition for that. So he was like, so you have to audition. And he said it in a way that I didn't have a choice. And so I auditioned. It was the most painful process because I was so shy. It was, and but then I got the Scarecrow, and that was my first experience on a stage. And it was one of those cliche moments where everything clicked, and I was like, oh, I understand who these people are. This is my community, this is my friends, and this is what I'm good at, and this is what makes me this is very satisfying and fulfilling. So I was like 16.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing that like you start out really shy, and then all of a sudden someone puts you on stage and you're like, oh wow, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Every parent I know of a theater kid was like, my kid was so shy, and then for some reason they auditioned for the school play, and then I went and saw them, and I was like, who is this? And I'm like, your child.
Yes, that's so real. That is so real. Do you remember like what some of your first auditioning experiences were like out, professionally? And have you ever had to deal with being stereotyped or just like
Oh yeah.
struggles in in this industry?
The biggest thing was like going from high school to college, and then from going from college to New York. Each of those times I'd have to like completely rediscover myself because they would see me as a completely different person. And especially moving to New York, I always knew I was half Japanese, but I wasn't fully aware of how I looked, I guess, because after moving to New York, people started saying, you're ethnically ambiguous. You're ethnically ambiguous. And I'm like, what does that mean? I know that I'm ethnically ambiguous, but what does that mean? And so my first couple of years in New York, it almost seemed like no one knew what to do with me. And, they were like, well, you're not white, so we can't have you here. But then I would start going out for Asian parts and like full Asian parts. And there were times where I'd be auditioning for like a historical Chinese figure. And I'm like, something about this doesn't feel like, I'm like, sure, I'm part Asian, but like, if I get this above all these other full Asian people, it felt weird. And it's sort of, even now, it's kind of, it depends on the role, you know? I think it's, especially now, like, I don't know, it's hard when you don't fit into a very specific box, And
Yeah.
so I think that's why when Dash and Lily came along, and even Be More Chill, because Be More Chill came along and they were like, we don't really care. It's kind of colorblind in a way. And so that was like, oh, that's refreshing, where it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like, they were like, you could play any of these characters. And I was like, that's wonderful. And then when Dash and Lily came and they were like, no, we're gonna make him half Japanese and half white, and I'm like, great, I don't have to worry about it. Like, that's great. Every time I get an audition, it's more than just like, what's the ethnicity? It's like, well, I need more information, because if it is like a full Asian character, how important is it that, if it's a historical Asian character, then I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll lean away from that, because I think it would better suit in the long run for it to be represented 100% accurately. If it's just like, oh, this is like a this is like a guest star in an episode, and it's written for a full Asian person, but it's not, we just did that just, for more diversity, then I feel more comfortable going out for that. It's a case by case basis. And you know what? Sometimes I make misjudgments. I think, and on both ends. Sometimes the casting people make misjudgments and they bring me in and I'm like, I should not be here. And then other times I'll be like, I'll audition for that. And then I get there and I see everyone there and I go, I should not be here. I made a mistake.
I don't know if you have any plans or things you're working on or any goals you want to achieve.
I just want to keep working, and I would love to, I would love to just have a part in the continued progression of representation in Hollywood, if you would say. I think that's kind of my main goal when it comes to my career. I think it's really important to show as many different types of people as possible.
Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Mr. Troy Iwata.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. Loved you in this show and also in Be More Chill. So congratulations on everything.
Much. It was really great to meet you and talk to you.
If you like this one, you can check out more Pop Culture Planet right over here. See ya.